Welcome to our program, the conclusion of our program, Combating Violence in Universities Through Art. This is a Sister Cities project between Dakar, Senegal and Washington, D.C., sponsored by the D.C. Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Washington, D.C., 2020. Before we get started, and I will talk a little more about the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Everyone is currently muted, and the only people who will be having access are the collaborators and the artists. The webinar is in English and French. Please use the chat feature to ask questions or post comments. If those questions or comments are directed at me, I may need to respond after the webinar, so thank you. The DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities offers several funding programs for individuals and nonprofit organizations located in the District of Columbia. It is supported in part by the National Endowment for the Arts. The Sister Cities Grant is one of the programs it supports, providing a one-time project support and covers travel expenses to foster arts and humanities exchange between the District of Columbia and its sister cities. There are currently 15 sister cities, which include Bangkok, Accra, Rome, Athens, Paris, Brasilia, and of course Dakar, which I chose. The grant benefits the arts and humanities for both the District of Columbia and its sister cities. The focus is to provide artists, humanities practitioners, and arts organizations from the District of Columbia and its sister cities the opportunity to engage in cultural exchange and development, increase the quality of life by supporting a vibrant community identity through arts and humanities, and raise the profile of the District of Columbia. Our collaborators are Dr. Mohammed Ali, Professor Ibrahim Tao, and myself. I will be speaking in English, and then our collaborator who has just joined us will be speaking in French, as this program is multi-language, English and French. Combating Violence in Universities Through Art was originally planned to be a hands-on collaboration with me traveling to Dakar, Senegal, to conduct a textile project with doctoral and master's students at IFAN University in Dakar, Senegal. My part of the program was to teach tie-dye and found object printing on t-shirts and wrap skirts using local dyes. Dainabu Senden Baldi and Dr. Mohammed Abdallah Ali were in turn scheduled to travel to Washington, D.C. to conduct their textile project using indigo dyes to decorate t-shirts and wrap skirts at a local university. Both programs were to conclude with lectures on combating violence in universities through art, how to take care of printed fabric, and a fashion show. Due to the pandemic and the inability to travel, we were able to salvage a project by commissioning artists to create art and sharing our programs through this webinar. Based on my research, violent crime in Washington, D.C. universities have declined over the last few years by almost 50%. Efforts have been done to educate students about their surroundings, to keep track of their possessions, walk with a companion or in groups, and use campus police services. Violent crimes were attributed to what was going on in the neighborhoods where the universities were located. Crimes included robbery, aggravated assault, rape, domestic violence, and dating violence associated with alcohol consumption. My collaborators and I see art as an alternative to violence on university campuses. We hope that our project is successful in offering art as a solution. To support our point, I have noted that in the last 2 to 3 years in Washington, D.C. and surrounding areas, many entrepreneurs, including artists, have begun hosting art parties where participants pay a fee and receive art materials, equipment, and instructions in order to create art in a safe, fun environment. So there are 2 artists from Dakar, Senegal, and 2 from Washington, DC, including myself by default, as someone on the team dropped out. So I'm an artist in the program by default. So now we're showing one of the Senegalese artists' slides of her work, Dainabou Baldi. I don't know if she is one of the participants. So this is her work with the topic, combating violence in universities, as illustrated here by the slides. Here's another of her work, very expressive and clear. Next one, Petty. So the description of the work from Senegal, I think there were 2 artists, as I said, Dainabou and Dani, and they worked together on 15 works of visual art and mixed media. So the techniques used are batik, tie-dye, and tie-dye and batik. And batik, of course, is a hot wax technique to reserve the design and dip in color in several steps to create an image. The intervention on the canvas is done after the application of the image by the illustrator. Tie-dye is a technique of binding, sewing to obtain graphics, broken lines, straight lines, etc. Also for tie-dye, the color indigo as a natural dye based on maceration of leaves of the indigo plant and obtain a range of blue tones from lightest to darkest. It is a work that requires a long process, which causes its rarity compared to the synthetic products used in other works. The use of indigo as a natural dye in this project contrasts the color of the synthetic dye materials. The first 10 works realized with synthetic products, dimension 98 by 78 centimeter, and it was done this year, 2020. And of course, the illustrator and acrylic on canvas, Daniel. And then on the canvas, Dainabou. The 5 remaining pieces, the dimensions are 98 to 78 centimeters. And it was done this year. And that technique is tie-dye, and it was directed by Dainabou. And here's another slide. This is the planning stages of the work. Next slide, please. And here is another slide of by Dainabou. It's very expressive and it says exactly what it is. Next slide, please. And this is Daniel's description of his work. He says he's an illustrator and participant in a batik project on violence in academia based on documentation related to the theme. He has produced the 15 illustrations depicting the different types of violence within the University of Dakar, precisely placed that I realized on boards on the fabric before the intervention of Dainabou, who made the dyeing with the batik technique about violence between students and the forces of law and order, and violence between students. The illustrations are accompanied by slogans relating to the reasons for claiming the fight against violence and nonviolence. In terms of technique, the illustrations are colored using primary pigments made from soda and applied with a brush in repeated layers. After the application of the dark color, come the finishes by specifying the contours of the acrylic illustrations. Next slide. And this is the work of local Washington, DC artist, Shante Gates. And Shante, I will let you speak for yourself because you're here. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Shante Gates. The piece that I created for this project is part of a series that I started 5 years ago called They Know. It was created initially as a part of an exhibit titled It Takes a Nation at American University here in DC. The exhibit was a commemoration for the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. So they know is a mirrored set of portraits, diptychs, that are representations of introspection. The pieces are created to face outward as well. So to give a sense, the idea is looking within oneself to discover the power one truly possesses in order to look out into the world with more clarity. During the It Takes a Nation exhibit, there were a few incidents that happened on campus where bananas were thrown at students, particularly women. And, people were hanging bananas from nooses, scrapped with the text referring to a Black sorority there. And these acts that were aimed at Black students, particularly women, seemed to be more prevalent when these Black students were publicly recognized at the university. In one event, the first Black woman president of the student government was elected, and you would, like the next day, you had people throwing bananas at students and all of the other things. So when I first heard of these incidents, I immediately began to think about my niece, whom at the time, whose image is actually in this work right here. This is my niece. And just thinking about the new challenges she would have to endure as she prepared for college. And the work immediately became more important to me, and since has become an ongoing theme in my practice. And I always tell her, the more you know about yourself, the better you're able to navigate this life. So coincidentally, in turn, I've been able to implement this a project from this piece of art, or these pieces, this ongoing series, into workshops at various high schools around DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. The program requires students to create these self-portraits of themselves, to create these works of art, these diptychs that evoke introspection, so, via exploring the dichotomy of fear and love. So I would have them, come up with lists of words of things that they fear and things that they love, and incorporate them into these portraits to try to find, the difference between them. And really, the project is really to give them some sense of emotional awareness, and thinking about it on on a high school level. Most of these projects were done with 11th and 12th graders. So to give them some a sense of who they are before they enter the college, the college world is kind of like, it just happened to work out that way. And so these are the pieces, and this is the series that that I see as a part of my practice for the ongoing future. That's it, pretty much.
Thank you. So, as the final artist, this is Patsy Ann, and this is the plan for my art. This is, what I wanted to create, something bright for this project. Peddy, can you please show the final piece, and I'll discuss it when you do the final slide. Okay. When I think of violence on university campuses and how to combat it, I think of creating an environment of love, unity, peace, and togetherness. A place where students can potentially gather based on a common interest to create recreational art in a safe, fun setting. When I was faced with doing this project, first of all, I would say that I'm a product of my environment. And whatever is going on in my life usually reflects in my art. So for me, I was challenged, and to come up with something, I wanted to go in a different direction. I wanted to create something really bright. And so the art that you're seeing is what I came up with. I made a conscious effort to go bright. My art reflects those feelings. I wanted to create something big, bold, and warm. I chose a warm color palette consisting mainly of yellow, red, and green. I selected symbols synonymous with my thoughts to express myself. I thought of the significance of large trees, which I'm fascinated with. I have many surrounding me in my area, and how firmly embedded they are in the earth. These trees are around me are tall, old, sturdy, And many times after severe rain or windstorm, I marvel at their endurance to survive, or even going for a walk on the sidewalk and noting the elevated sidewalk due to the spreading roots below my feet. With that in mind, I tie-dyed my colorless fabric in 2 colors, gold and red, which resulted in orange as well for the background. I then created a large tree in the center of my composition with roots spreading out and anchoring the tree in the ground as a symbol of strength. From the roots of the tree, I depicted love flowing up the trunk with imagery of red hearts, increasing in size as they ascend the trunk, flowing into branches, radiating upward, outward, and beyond. The colored hands with peace and love symbols on either side illustrate togetherness and unity. So I hope looking at the art, you could see what I was trying to do and that you enjoy it. Thank you, Petty. Next slide. Okay, before I give the credits, if our Senegalese partners are online, I would like to give you the opportunity to talk about the project.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Labine, do you hear me?
Yes.
Ok. Labine, voilà, tu vas expliquer un tout petit peu et voilà, tu connais pas.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. My name is Lamine Badji. I am a doctoral student at Eureka of the Cheikh Anta Diop University of Dakar, and I am speaking on the behalf of Dr. Mohamed Abdullahi and Professor Ibrahim Chow, who unfortunately is not with us this morning. He is in the field where he does not have access to internet. In this brief presentation, I will recall the trajectory or the history of the typology of violence and the failure of program to combat violence in universities. In particular, the Cheikh Anta Diop University of Dakar, which is the first university in Senegal with more than 50,000 students. Since 1968, which was a year marked by a violent revolt of the student movement, which resulted in the arrest, expulsion, and even the enlistment of some in the army. An imaginary demand have been established in academic space. This is characterized by violence in a stereotypical form. For example, the following are some examples. The payment of student scholarship is delayed, and when this happens, they block the circulation of certain strategic axes, such as the west cornice of Cheikh Anta Diop Avenue. And there is always a chase with the police throwing tear gas and canister, and then while the student respond with stone. In addition to this, scene that I have just seen in the conflict between various factions of the same fraternity or between students of competing fraternities, in which the protagonists confront each other using accentuating bombs, knives, clubs, etc., have painfully marked the space. Following these details describing what is happening on the campuses of Dakar in terms of violence and demand, we will discuss attempts to curb the violence that makes the academic landscape of UCAD unstable. These measures adopted so far in this context have mostly failed, even if it should be emphasized that the État généraux de l'enseignement et de la formation, I don't know how to translate it in English, the strategic plan of UCAD, the major reform undertaken by the states in 2013, following the national consultation on higher education and the inclusion of the function of a mediator in the institutional architecture of ICAD have produced interesting solutions that these have so far failed to stem the violence. In recent years, research units as ours have felt that that it is urgent to initiate a reversal of perspectives and paradigms to put an end to the violence whose human, material, academic, and moral costs are invaluable. And one of the major ideas is to establish artistic practice and in the imagination of claimant, hence the interest of this collaboration. Thank you. I would like also to emphasize that there is a little problem with the time because that's why Jenaba and Daniel are not yet connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamine. Thank you very much. Yes, we seem to be having an issue with the time, and I think we are 6 hours behind you, and we tried to figure that out when we set up for the presentation. So I'm sorry, that's not working out. So anyway, this is all recorded, and I will give access to Dainabu and Danny of the presentation. At this time, my collaborators and I would like to thank the following organizations and people for the support of our project. The DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, Washington, DC, with special thanks to Haran Bran and Benjamin Douglas. The Engineering Research Unit in Cultural and Anthropology, Eureka. IFAN Chike Diop University, Dakar, Senegal. Research Department, Social Sciences Lab, FAN Chike Diop University, Dakar, Senegal. To the artists, Dainabu, Shante, and Daniel. The Stylist Group for designing and organizing the webinar. The translators, Compton and others, who have assisted us in making this project possible. And last but not, before I do that, special thanks to Miss Beverly Crane, who was assigned to the US Embassy in Dakar, Senegal. And last but not least, Ibrahima, Mohammed, and Lamine, for so kindly agreeing to work with me. Thank you very much for this. The program has now concluded. If you have any questions, we're on for a little more. Please feel free to make comments or using the chat. No more comments. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the program. I thank you very much for joining us and participating in the conclusion of this project. Have a great day, and again, we greatly appreciate the collaborators, and I greatly appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.